Avoiding loss is just as important as increasing top-line revenue. But many executives are still managing risk on an Excel spreadsheet.
From supply chain disruptions and climate change to massive fraud detection wins, AI is rewriting the rules of risk management.
We're breaking down how the right technology can make a huge difference to your bottom line and how to sell that ROI to your board.
Plus, we're looking at simple foundational AI use cases and how to avoid the trap of AI washing.
Welcome to the pre-read.
Just like the slides you get before a big meeting, the pre-read prepares you, CFOs, and other executives for the next big thing. It's the global podcast where finance, sustainability, audit, and risk teams come together in the C-suite.
If you're making decisions at scale or need to understand the leaders who are, you're in the right place. This is the pre-read, brought to you by Workiva.
I'm Steve Soder, accounting enthusiast and Diet Coke aficionado.
And I'm Alyssa Zucker, sustainability nerd and equal opportunist caffeine addict. Today, we're talking about how organizational silos and technical debt are creating an existential crisis for businesses, and how strategic AI adoption can provide the blueprint for a more efficient, integrated company of the future.
That's right, Alyssa. We're looking at how technological sophistication can have a massive impact on your enterprise valuation and how to avoid the trap of AI washing by focusing on a defensible, strategic roadmap.
In this conversation, you'll hear from Jacob Andra, partner at Talbot West, who helps companies architect full-stack technical solutions and create AI roadmaps for growth.
So, Alyssa, what were some of the highlights from the chat we had with Jacob?
I would say the first one was really all about how tech maturity is now driving enterprise value. And this is something that M&A advisors are seeing something as much as a 6x swing in exit multiples between companies with the same revenue and EBITDA. What's the differentiator, though? It's how credible the buyer believes your tech stack is and roadmap are. The second thing I found really interesting is that the winning AI strategy is, maybe unsurprisingly, very much still in motion and not finished. The strongest valuation bump comes from having a clear AI roadmap, early proof points, and visible next steps. Buyers want to see momentum, and on top of that, room to add value. Steve, what stood out to you?
Well, I loved your takeaways, Alyssa, and I had a couple as well. First is that a unified knowledge layer pays off fast. That was the first thing Jacob brought up. And at first it surprised me, but it made a lot of sense. That knowledge layer will shorten onboarding, it reduces tribal knowledge risk, and it builds muscle memory that the teams need before they can scale into more advanced AI use cases. And the second thing he said, also a bit of a surprise, was to look beyond traditional LLMs. He said some of the highest value wins actually sit in classic machine learning like supply chain optimization, fraud detection, scenario modeling, and risk analytics. It was a phenomenal conversation.
It sure was, so let's not keep it from our audience any longer. Let's go to our chat with Jacob Andra. Jacob, your firm spends a lot of time looking inside the way that companies operate. What are some of the common themes to your findings?
Well, every company's sort of in the same boat, Alyssa, which is they've all grown sort of piecemeal and ad hoc. And when we're coming with a lens of what we call total organizational intelligence. That just means that we see as an inevitability that in the future, companies are going to be much more integrated because that will be a survival imperative. So we're coming with that lens. And obviously from that perspective, every company looks like a bit of a mess, you could say, but we're very understanding. I mean, we don't come with a sort of judgmental approach on that, but you have a lot of silos, a lot of technical debt, a lot of unutilized data, and we look at this as pure opportunity. So rather than coming in and telling them everything they're doing wrong, we come in with a positive spin of all the opportunities. Like, it's almost like, wow, you're doing as well as you are, even with all of this underutilized opportunity. And once we help you deploy these opportunities, think how amazing it's going to be.
Do you see data as the kind of driving connection point? You know, like when we're talking about de-siloing organizations, there's de-siloing the data, there's de-siloing the teams and the actual change management and the people doing those jobs, then the processes that maybe, you know, connect the people to that data. Is it data that's really the driver to bring that kind of connectivity and integration across a company, or something else?
It's all of it. So when you operate in silos, your data is siloed. Your people are fairly siloed, your processes, your workflows, all of that. So the unsiloing is going to span all of it, but data is a huge unlock. And often with data, you can even find, immediate revenue opportunities. So anytime you can increase top line revenue, that's obviously a huge win. And many times companies are sitting on incredibly valuable data assets that they have no idea how to utilize. So part of our consulting is sort of orchestrating that data across the enterprise and figuring out how to unlock its value.
So clearly there are some themes here that you've just discussed, and obviously your objective is going to be to address those themes and unlock the opportunities. So as you see that, Jacob, walk us through the specifics of maybe the most common AI use cases that you'll end up recommending, recognizing all organizations are different, of course, but certainly there are some themes to the solutioning aspect of your work as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of specificity to industry and even to specific organizations within industries, depending on what they've already done and what kind of tech stack they're sitting on. But a super common one is standardizing knowledge management and leveraging the capabilities of large language models to unlock complex knowledge management. Now, we work with the full spectrum of AI machine learning capabilities, so we're not just a large language model consultancy, but large language models are incredible at parsing incredibly technical information and retrieving answers. And so sort of implementing a knowledge management layer for an organization is a really crucial foundation. We talked about total organizational intelligence. This is very foundational to future initiatives, and it also delivers immediate results. So you first standardize the actual knowledge base, and then you get your own proprietary large language model, or maybe an ensemble of them, depending on the complexity of the use case. And you train it on that so that anyone can have instant access to complex information summarized for them, the exact answer they need when they need it from a single source of truth.
And I would assume that would also, in addition to enabling future humans to be able to make better decisions, that would probably serve as a good training ground for future automations with AI. I would imagine that would certainly be one of the benefits that you're thinking of as well. Is that right?
Absolutely. It's so foundational. So you can spin other initiatives off of it. New hire ramp up can be significantly shortened. The amount of time senior staff have to spend ramping up new hires. Any future kind of initiatives or improvements you want to do can be leveraged off it, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I like that kind of HR use case that you're bringing in, because, we so often think about, when it comes to AI, so dependent on the data foundation, right? You have to train the model on the right information. And actually thinking about that from HR's perspective of onboarding and orientation and getting new hires up to speed, really interesting example, because that really shows, I think, like the breadth of where this could be. What are some specific outcomes of, that a CFO and the finance team could expect?
Yeah, so if we're talking specifically about this knowledge layer, which is only one of many AI use cases, once you establish the foundation, you can point it in so many directions. So for example, for a mid-sized commercial bank, you could spin up a entire compliance toolkit for this to monitor and help you manage compliance, manufacturing. So I could go across, you could talk specific to almost any industry and talk where this would come into play, trained on both a law firm practices and procedures as well as legal precedent and all of this building a human in the loop for the sensitive stuff so you can have source validation and all of that. So really unlimited use cases across every department, across every industry.
You mentioned the knowledge base was just one application. What are some of the others that you'll often recommend to your clients?
If you want to sort of take another slice that's outside of the realm of large language models, which are sort of over-indexed in modern discourse, everybody's a bit focused on large language models. There are many amazing machine learning capabilities coming out. We're looking at a potential partner, Lucidity Sciences, which is based here in Utah. They've developed new novel mathematical approaches to solving complex optimization problems. They're more effective than other machine learning approaches. And essentially, this would be anytime you have some sort of optimization challenge that would fall outside of the core strengths of a large language model to optimize against a set of constraints. So that could be, for example, supply chain stuff, fraud detection type stuff. Like any time you have a data set you can train it on, and then a pattern you want it to learn to recognize.
And, on the fraud stuff, I mean, I say that with my background in retail, those savings actually can add up really, really quickly. I mean, almost overnight, if you have the right detection tools or the right people, or certainly a combination of both. That one certainly resonates with me.
So cost cutting is the one everyone thinks of, but even more effective is increasing top line revenue. There's another one, which is risk management. We just worked with an aerospace manufacturer that wasn't managing risk very well. They were using Excel spreadsheets for their risk program, and we pointed them to a risk management solution that centralized all their risks into one dashboard. If they are able to reduce the number of realized risks by any significant margin, that's a huge difference to their bottom line. So avoiding loss is just as important as increasing top line revenue.
Yeah, when you were giving some of those kind of themes, where my mind immediately went was like physical risk of climate change and increased extreme weather events, and recognizing the pattern of, whether it's your operations or those of your suppliers that are located in, areas prone to flood zone, or, in whatever natural disaster it is, and then mitigating that risk and the disruption and the loss of, to your business.
As the sustainability nerd, of course, we would expect Alyssa to immediately go there.
Of course.
As the cold, hardened accountant, I'm only thinking dollars and cents.
It is the dollars and cents. That's the whole point. How are you gonna sell your product if you don't have the materials to make your product?
100%. 100%. We're in violent agreement.
Per usual.
I love it. Yeah, sustainability, I know, is one of Workiva's core things that you guys help companies to manage sustainability initiatives. And of course, that is, environmental issues are something that affect us all. So that's one of many, axes of risk you have to account for.
Half of accounting and finance professionals say AI helps them quickly consume data and tackle time-consuming tasks, according to new research from Workiva. Don't get left behind. AI isn't just for tech demos. Today, it can draft earnings narratives, flag risks, benchmark ESG disclosures, and even prep your next board meeting, if you know where to look. Start with 9 ways the Office of the CFO should use AI right now at workiva.com/PR-CFOAI. See where AI is already working and how to make it work for you. That's workiva.com/PR-CFOAI.
So, Jacob, when you're having these conversations with executives, how do you manage those expectations? I mean, candidly, I wouldn't have expected you to have led with a knowledge base as one of the first examples, and I realize that's one of many. However, as you describe sort of the follow-on benefits from that makes perfect sense to me. And I'm just wondering, when you're having these dialogues with the C-suite, how are you helping them manage expectations, and what should they be looking for as far as maybe short and long-term benefits and impacts that they could have as they kind of go down this transformation journey?
So Talbot West has developed our APEX methodology for essentially prioritizing where you can apply AI technologies within your organization. And it breaks down and ranks potential initiatives across 5 criteria that matter. So one is cost, not just in terms of dollars, but in terms of other resources. One is synergy with other potential initiatives. One is kind of a squeaky wheel syndrome. So what do executives care most about? Because that one's also important. One is impact to bottom line, and one is technological feasibility. Is this kind of something that should be tabled for the future till technology matures, or is current technology really able to do this extremely well? And so we rank potential initiatives across those 5 criteria, and it becomes very clear very fast where they should start.
Interesting. And maybe I'm curious how they also rank towards this last question, which is, in our prep call, you shared some really interesting insight on how the impact of AI and tech optimization can actually impact a company's valuation. And I think that's something that can sometimes be like a theoretical dialogue or discourse. And so can you walk us through that with some real tangible examples and indicators of how it can really push to the ultimate goal, which isn't just the risk mitigation and the top line revenue growth, but the longer term strategy and vision of, enterprise value?
Exactly. And it's a good idea for executives to be thinking in these terms, whether they're looking for an exit immediately or planning to grow and hold. And this also applies to fundraising as well, because investors are essentially buyers. And so you want to have the same mentality, whether you're growing and holding looking for funding, or planning to sell. But in data from the Alliance of M&A Advisors proprietary survey that's sent out every 6 months and has tens of thousands of responses, there is at least a 6x multiple difference between companies of identical EBITDA and revenue within the same industry. So you can have a huge spread of actual exit values. And in large part, we attribute that to technological sophistication and road mapping. So there's a lot of buyer perception at play as well as reality. So if buyers perceive that they're getting a company that's very tech forward, AI enabled, then they're willing to pay more. What we're seeing is the sweet spot is if you create a complete AI roadmap for yourself, charting a course to some future state of extreme sophistication, and then you begin implementing steps along that roadmap while very clearly charting how future steps that you haven't yet implemented will be implemented. That's the sweet spot that buyers love to see, because then they can still reap some upside. It's very clearly laid out how you've done foundational work that starts to build toward that end state. And so it's not just theoretical, it's real, but you've left some for them to do. You don't have to do the entire thing.
This conversation is reminding me of how we were talking about sustainability, let's call 5 years ago, where real companies had been doing it for a long, long time. And certainly there were industries, financial services, energy, and others that were dramatically impacted by, climate sustainability. But then you had others, software might be a really good example where, the sustainability link, I guess now with AI and data centers, that might be more of a thing. But 5 years ago, it's like, hey, maybe I'll hire a chief sustainability officer, put out an impact report, kind of start to think about it. And at the time, that actually, I think, drove some improvements in valuation, certainly customer perception, those kind of things. The way you're describing this, Jacob, actually feels kind of similar. But one of the things that we saw with sustainability now on this side of these, last several years is that, greenwashing has kind of been called out and people sort of like realize that pretty quickly. How do you avoid maybe that same outcome with AI washing? We hear a lot, that term is like bandied about quite a bit now, but how do you sort of avoid that so that at least what you're doing is real, not just for purposes of valuation, but also for the impacts that you expect that to have, regardless of whether you're going to raise money or try to sell?
Exactly, and that's what we help our clients do. Our SVP of Solutions Architecture, Steve Carfiat, led Oracle's developer innovation team, architecting full stack technical solutions for the Fortune 500. And so when we lead clients through this, it's not just AI washing, it's completely defensible. Everything we claim, everything we kind of architect future state is well laid out. So this is not AI washing. It's all extremely defensible and holds up to the closest technical scrutiny.
I love the words that you're using, because defensible and claims are also words that are commonly used when you're talking about carbon, specifically carbon credits and investing in, kind of decarbonizing outside of your own value chain. But it is, Steve, I thought that was a great question, such a similar kind of premise around how do you kind of like maintain the integrity of what you're conveying to your stakeholders is the impact of this investment. And it's not going to be the silver bullet. It's not going to be 100% in year one, right? It's part of a broader context and transition of how you are transforming your business to really operate, on these new pillars and foundation, whether it's incorporating AI, whether it's really incorporating sustainability into the strategic long-term planning of your business. Great question, Steve. Now I really know why you're the host of the podcast,
Co-host, Alyssa, let's be clear. And I think, though, that the lessons that organizations have learned with respect to greenwashing and, carbon specifically we've talked about, I mean, again, it feels like there's, just like you said, there's a lot of parallels here, and I think a lot of lessons. Interesting. Hey, I'd rather be lucky than good. I'll chalk this one up to luck. And a great guest who's highlighting these issues in a way that's certainly helping me kind of process and think through. Thank you to our guest, Jacob Andra, and thank you for listening.
This has been The Pre-Read, brought to you by Workiva, the world's only unified platform for financial reporting, sustainability, audit, and risk.
We've got more insights and hot takes coming your way, so be sure to follow or subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your edge.
If you liked the show, leave a review. Send it to someone you love, or just shout it out on your next team call.
We'll be back next week, and until then, go lead it like you mean it.
I'm Alyssa Zucker, and that's Steve Soder. Our lead producer is Mike Ravagno, with audio support from Joseph Machinsky and Drew Hayes.
Claire Allison is our graphic designer. Transcripts are created and edited by Courtney Kimsey. And thanks to our digital and social team, Mike Berg, Katie Carr, and Michael Karnowski.